Tervetuloa kaikki suomalaiset ja kansainväliset ystävämme tänne ensimmäiseen EDUXR Talks-tapahtumaan Saran rantatontille. Sekä täällä Altspacessa ja sitten livestreamin äärellä siellä YouTuben äärellä kotikatsomoissa.
Shall we take the same in English? Okay, yes. We want to welcome you, all of you, to the first EDUXR talks at this Sarah's World, which is a very nice place. We would like you to come a bit closer, everyone, because we are not that many, so it will be a bit difficult for Heli Harrikari to talk about things in a natural way if the audience is really far away. So Memma, will you tell more about this?
Yes, I will. Okay. Hän on Ilona ja minä olen Memma ja me toimitaan täällä tänä iltana juontajina ja meiltä voi tulla kysymään neuvoja ja apua, jos sitä tarvitsee.
Yeah. So my name is Ilona and she is Memma, and this will be a bilingual event. So as you can see, we are already speaking English and Finnish at the same time. The talk will be in English, but then we'll be able to have discussions in Finnish or in English. Or other
Kyllä.
languages, if you please.
Kyllä. Eli tämä EDUXR Talks on jatkoa EDUXR 2020 tapahtumalle, joka oli huhtikuussa ja se oli suomenkielinen tapahtuma. Halusimme laajentaa tämän nyt myös kansainvälisille ystäville, mutta koska haluamme myös, että meidän kaikki suomalaiset ystävämme tuntevat olonsa kotoisaksi ja mukavaksi, niin haluamme pitää tämän tapahtuman kaksikielisenä ja kannustamme teitä käyttämään sitä kieltä, mikä teiltä hyvältä tuntuu, mutta esitys on tosiaan englanniksi. Sen jälkeen voitte esittää kysymyksiä, kommentteja, käydä keskustelua sillä kielellä, joka siinä ryhmässä ja tilanteessa tuntuu sopivimmalta ja mukavammalta. Eli haluamme rohkaista sekä suomen että englannin käyttöön tilanteen mukaan.
So,
Oliko muuta, Ilona?
No, I think we are ready to move on to the theme. So the theme today is continuous learning. And we will have... Yeah, go ahead.
Ja teemasta tulee puhumaan Tampereen yliopistosta jatkuvan oppimisen johtaja Heli Harrikari. Ole hyvä.
And just for the audience to know, we will mute you for the presentation, and then we'll open your mics afterwards, and you'll be able to ask questions and discuss this first with Heli, and then maybe in smaller groups.
Ja koska me emme voi nyt antaa teille voimistaa teidän ääntä sieltä, niin toivotaan sitten tämän esityksen jälkeen, kun teillä on kysyttävää tai haluatte kommentoida, niin tulette sen verran lähelle, että Heli voi kuulla, mitä haluatte sanoa, kysyä, kommentoida. Silloin teillä avataan mikit, kun esitys on ohi. Hyvä, mutta pidemmittä puhetta, Heli, ole hyvä.
Welcome, and you can, for the audience, you can give applause from you'll see the emoji button there. So there you can clap your hands. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so can you hear me? Apparently, I assume. Good. So, well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Heli Harrikari. I work as the Director of Continuous Learning at Tampere University in Finland. Don't know where you are physically located at the moment, but we are all here now in this beautiful Sarah's world. So let's make the best out of these couple of hours that we have today. My job at Tampere University is about reimagining and revising higher education at large in the long run. Continuous learning in general is a huge topic in Finland nowadays. Many stakeholders of the society wonder about what to do with the new kinds of needs of continuous learning. It's actually part of even the Finnish governmental program at the moment to find out how to adjust the entire society to respond to the needs of continuous learning in the long run. So how do we reskill and upskill people, actually a huge amount of people continuously in the future? It's not going to be an easy task. And we also know that more and more often the future jobs need skills and competencies that require higher education level education. And that means that we in higher education system need to do our part and try to figure out what we need to change in order to make sure that we respond to the new needs of society and new kinds of skills and competence requirements in the future. And in fact, I would go even that far and say that it's our task in higher education to sort of drive our system into a paradigm shift to make sure that we stay relevant also in the future. I will speak maybe, let's say about maybe 20 plus minutes. I will not tell you a nice story about the future of higher education, but rather I will, you see the picture there, I will pick out some of the topics there and tell you what I think about them and what we are doing about them in Tampere University at the moment. And now that I'm talking about continuous learning or lifelong learning, that's probably the term that people are more familiar with. And I'm talking about higher education. I'm actually talking about the paradigm shift of the entire higher education. So not only the type of traditional lifelong learning services that we provide people already in working life, but everything I say today is about revising the entire higher education. But since nobody really knows what higher education in the future will look like, we can only guess. So that's why I don't have a nice coherent story today. Nobody has, but like I said, I will hopefully stimulate your thinking and maybe provoke your ideas a little bit, and then we can talk about them together. So think of it as more like a chat, not like as a fancy conference presentation, because it's not going to be. The picture up there pretty much describes, I would say, like 99% of the things that we are currently working on towards reforming higher education in Tampere University. The pie in the middle is the most important part. It describes the choices that we've made, sort of strategic choices that steer us, whatever we are doing. We have to remember and keep those in mind. So I will talk about the different parts of the pie a little bit, and then let's see how much we actually have time to talk about the things around the pie. They are obviously related to everything that's in the pie. But let's start with the spot with red text, and that's skills and competences. And I would say that that's actually the core part of higher education reform in the future. Nowadays, as you know, in higher education, we actually talk about degrees. We talk about courses, we talk about earning credits, but we don't really talk about skills and competencies. Of course, we have learning outcomes in our courses written down, but what do they actually tell about the skills and competencies of individuals in the end? So think about the current situation. The students come to university. We don't really know about their skills and competencies at the level of an individual, right? We only guess. Then what happens is that they take courses, and as I said, they have learning outcomes there. But again, when you think about a student taking courses one after another, how well do we actually understand how the skills and competencies develop at the level of an individual? And in the end, when the student leaves the university, we still don't know, and he and she doesn't know either. And that's something that we actually need to change. So we need to stop talking about degrees or courses or credits. Those are tools, those are sort of packaging tools of learning, right? They're supposed to be tools, but nowadays they are our goals. And the skills and competencies are actually the ones that we should care about. Skills and competencies in the future should be able to, we should be able to develop them anywhere, anytime, in any way, right? And we need to be, in higher education, we need to be able to recognize skills and competencies developed elsewhere. We need to be able to understand what they are, we need to be able to validate them, and we need to be able to bring them to the digital portfolio of an individual in the future. So skills and competencies are the core of everything. And the problem, I think, why we nowadays don't really talk about, and we talk about, like I said, degrees, courses and credits, is because we are not able to talk about them really. And what we are doing now in Tampere University, we've actually started a pilot using the powerful artificial intelligence to try to make the skills and competencies of an individual transparent. So that's one way to approach it. And I would actually say that if we are not able to do that, if we don't understand the skills and competencies of an individual transparently in the future, we actually fail reforming higher education or the system of continuous learning in general. So then the next part in the pie is digitalization and AI, and we know everything about digitalization of higher education nowadays and all this in many ways horrendous COVID-19 situation and what that has actually done to a digitalization of higher education. If there's something good about the situation, actually, I think that's probably one of them. But again, I think we've only seen a very small fraction of what will be possible in terms of digitalization in higher education in the future. So that's going to be a powerful tool and all the possibilities of artificial intelligence that we don't even know about. And I would actually say that we need to digitalize everything in higher education that makes sense pedagogically. And then we can use the resources, the human resources, the resources of our staff for doing what's actually where they are most valuable. So actually really sort of facing students, talking to them, facilitating the learning instead of lecturing in lecture rooms. Then the third part is customer orientation. I know that there are people, I don't know if they're here or, but anyway, there are people who think that we should not even talk about customers in higher education. Students are part of the community, which is true. But in the end, we have to start thinking about moving from a current state, very much production-oriented higher education, where we deliver courses, we deliver education. We need to start moving towards customer-oriented approach, where we actually first identify who are our customers in the future, considering degree education and non-degree education. And then we need to start thinking about what do those customers actually need. And we need to make sure that we actually revise all our processes, revise our organization altogether to serve the needs of our customers. So the customers are obviously students. If you think about the sort of the world of continuous learning, the employers will be customers of higher education to a larger extent than nowadays, and the society in general is of course our customer. And then employer collaboration is a big part of our reform. My background is in technical university, so I know a lot about university industry collaboration. And there are good things happening. So we know all the theses will be done for the companies, and there are some excursions, and there are guest lectures and all that. That's all nice, but that's just not enough. And now we come back to this idea of skills and competencies. In order to prepare higher education for the needs of continuous learning in the future, we actually have to harness everything that people learn at work, and we need to understand it transparently. And for that, we need new kind of collaboration with employers. It's not enough that we once in a while talk to each other, but we actually have to develop a system where we proactively plan what individuals learn at work as much as it can be planned. So we plan together, we validate it together, and then we are able to add the skills and competencies to the digital portfolio of an individual. So we need to start developing completely new kind of collaboration with employers. Then we come to the co-creation part, platform thinking, and value creation. And that's actually related to a little bit what I said before about the current day production-oriented higher education, where the university plans what will be taught, then sort of sets the courses available, and for others, the role is to participate. It's sort of take it or leave it. But in the future, I think we need to start thinking about higher education, the entire university, more in terms of a service platform. So we have to sort of create an environment where people come together. So different stakeholders of society, so the students, the teachers, researchers, company representatives, public bodies, they all come together and work together and learn together. And in that world, it's no longer a university alone which will decide what will be learned and what kinds of learning opportunities there will be. We actually need to start designing it all together and create value together. That's what it's all about. And then finally, there is the new business model. I don't know how many of you are from Finland and from elsewhere maybe, but the higher education system in Finland is publicly funded. So basically there's no tuition fee except for a very small number of students coming from abroad, but basically it's public money. Well, we know that public money is not going to go up in the future. At the same time, because of the reform of continuous learning, the task or sort of the workload of universities and higher education will be much higher than before. So we have to start thinking about how we're going to use the resources that we have nowadays, how we're going to use it in a smarter way. And then on the other hand, where do we find new funding opportunities? As part of the governmental work nowadays, there is some work going on about developing a system which actually defines what the student is going to pay, what the employer is going to probably pay, and what is the role of the society in the payment. But at the same time, we have to start working, as I said, much more closer together with employers and try to figure out if those, for example, would be new ways of funding higher education. As I said, this is not the situation in Finland, and the funding situation might be different in different countries. But anyway, we have to start thinking about completely new kind of business model for higher education in Finland. So those were the 6 parts of the pie. I'm looking at the clock, maybe a few minutes more. Let me see. Let's take the global mindset as default. Again, in a Finnish higher education system, I would say that we are still very far from the global mindset. And this also has something to do with the digitalization of future higher education. We know that because of digitalization, the world is shrinking and the opportunities are much wider than they have been so far. So I think that any higher education system, in order to survive and stay relevant in the future, will have to have mindset global as default, and that's something that we need to work on pretty hard. And then let's take agile access to higher education. Again, in a Finnish system, it's enormously complicated to get into higher education institution most of the time, particularly if you're coming to learn for a degree. I think that we need to find different ways of entering higher education in the future. The easiest thing I think that we should be able to do in the future, when I'm walking to the bus stop, I should be able to log into a university, let's say with my Twitter account, and through that get some services. So that again comes back to the customer orientation and trying to understand what kinds of customers we will have in the future and how can we actually serve them the best. Learning at work, that's we already talked about. Modular higher education. Nowadays, as we know, the biggest part of higher education is about the degrees that take long they really take for years to complete. And I'm not saying that degrees are going to disappear completely, but we have to find much more agile and sort of more on-demand ways of offering education and of learning opportunities. And that means that we actually have to start breaking apart everything that we now offer in education, in degree education. We have to start breaking it all apart, try to figure out what kinds of smaller modules we are able to offer for people for much faster and agile learning. And that has to go throughout the entire education. And just because of the resources, it's not possible anymore in the future to have sort of a degree education as a separate silo, and then again have the other, whatever it is, non-degree education as another one. We have to sort of find the synergies throughout the education. And that actually brings me to the organizational structures, which is usually kind of boring issue, but I think in this case it's quite interesting. Since nowadays, as I said, we have the non-degree education, we have the degree education, and then we have lots of different kinds of silos, and students actually have to know in what kind of silo they have to put themselves into in the university organization to find their own, the best way to learn at that point. And I think we need to get rid of all those silos. It's all about skills and competences. It's all about learning. And so instead of putting students to try to understand our organizational structure, we just offer them skills and competence development. So we have to find very lean ways to restructure the entire higher education. That's probably what I wanted to say. There would be a lot. I could talk about this for hours, but maybe those are the most important parts, since I want to hear from your opinions as well. But maybe one final thought. I participated in the University Industry Collaboration Conference a couple of years ago. I think it was not the last summer, but the previous one. And there was a panel discussion there. And a question that one of the participants asked, it actually has been haunting me since then in a good way. He asked the question, what if higher education had no longer right to grant degrees in the future? What would be left of higher education? And I think it's a really good question. And if we are able to answer that question, I think higher education will be and will stay relevant also in the future. And we have the keys for continuous learning in higher education. I think that was pretty much what I wanted to say. Well, first of all, thank you for listening. And as was said in the beginning, the idea is that we can talk about all of these together. I would be very much interested in hearing your thoughts about this, whatever they are. And you had further instructions, right?
Joo, eli teillä on mahdollisuus pyytää puheenvuoroa sellaisella viittausemojilla, ja me voidaan itse asiassa Ilonen kanssa voimistaa sitten teidän ääni, niin te voitte sieltä ihan omalta paikalta sitten kysyä tai kommentoida tähän Helin puheeseen. Eli emoji-työkalu sieltä, ja siellä on semmoinen viittausemoji, niin sieltä voitte pyytää puheenvuoroa.
So do you have comments or questions? You can use the hand emoji or just approach here and we'll give you the right for the microphone. We have a very silent audience.
Yep, it's very silent. Oh,
there. Okay. Rob, shall you? Memma?
I try.
It's Rob.
Rob, yes.
Rob, I'll give you the
microphone.
Would you do that if you're first?
Where's Rob?
No, I put my hand up accidentally. Yeah. I think we'll give the microphone rights to everyone because our audience
yes,
is
Rob.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hello.
Hi.
Sorry.
Are you hearing me now? Okay.
Yep.
So my question is, apart from this webinar, which is great, thank you so much for hosting this in AltSpace VR. I'm just wondering what your university is doing in addition to this in the way of XR. Are programs using XR for hands-on learning at the moment or other forms of learning?
That's actually a very good question. And since we happen to have the CDO of Tampere University here, Juha, would you like to say a couple of words? Because he is the right person to answer the question, or the best person to answer the question.
Yeah, I can answer the question. So currently we are sorry.
Saatko se Juha ääntellistää itse? Ja, hyvä.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Currently we are not utilizing XR in education that much, but we have plans on doing that in a larger scale. Of course, there are some research areas that are researching XR, such as human-computer interfacing and maybe XR usage in education, but not in the actual training and curriculum. But there are plans, and this is one of the things that we are preparing ourselves towards that.
Mario. Okay, thank you.
Here's Jarmo, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's Jarmo here. Can you hear me, Heli?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for your excellent presentation. I'd just like to ask you about what do you think about what this last month exceptional time has affected the relationship and the future of the university and industrial cooperation in the area of the skills and competencies and development of those things?
I think that's a very, very good question. We've been talking about it with some people. Obviously, none of us knows what will really happen, but we've spent a lot of time thinking about, now that people are getting used to a digitalized world and digitalized education because of the current situation much faster than anybody actually anticipated, how is that going to affect the relevance of higher education? We know that various kinds of companies, for example, are able to provide very high quality education nowadays. So my guess would be that that's going to speed up the question of how to sort of stay relevant in higher education, because companies are starting to do what higher education has been doing for a long time. They are starting to do that now in much wider scale than anybody expected at this point. So that's sort of my guess what will happen towards sort of, if you think about a relationship with higher education and industry and learning. That's I think all I can think of at this point. I don't know. Do you have an idea?
I think I would love to have an idea. I'd just like to ask another question. What do you think? Do you think that we are able to answer the new demand from the industry in this field of the new skills and competencies and new digital learning environments and content?
At the moment, I don't think we are able to respond too well. And that's why when we talk about the reform or continuous learning, it cannot be about a sort of multiplying what we are doing now. It's not about sort of offering the similar kind of education that we offer now. We have to rethink about the way we think, we have to rethink about the way we do things, what kind of education we offer, what kinds of skills and competence develop, and how do we do it. Just for example, digitalization. So at the moment, my opinion is that we are not, in higher education in general, so in average, we are not doing too well to correspond. And I think that's why, for example, in Finland, we have this whole reform of continuous learning, because different stakeholders have realized that the current system is not able to provide what is needed.
Thank you.
More questions?
More questions? Yeah.
Yep.
Silja.
Silja, did you put your hand up?
Thank you. Can you hear my? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Yeah. My question would be that is there any university in the world that is kind of a forerunner as in the continuous learning?
Oh, I thought you were going to say digitalization. That was a tough part. Continuous learning. I think there are universities that actually sort of realized much faster that the degree education is not going to take us into the future. So degree education alone. So what they've done is sort of modularize the entire education in many ways. So I guess that's what they are doing. To have a sort of a brilliant example of continuous learning as sort of a whole university, I can't really name one right now. I think it's such a new thing for the entire higher education in many ways to understand the whole new demand of skills and competences.
Yeah, thank you.
I have some comments I would like to share as I'm thinking about the future also. And so I have not...
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm here.
Good.
There are two models of university that I think are excellent. The first being a model where you take classes for a semester, you do not receive grades, you receive written evaluations, and then in the next semester, you synthesize everything that you've learned by taking an internship, and you develop through your education, you develop your skills and gain experience and competency. And a second model that I've experienced personally in my education, I studied art, and our art department combined with the sciences and with the English department for an interdisciplinary PhD program. I didn't do a PhD, but that was the model that they were moving towards. So I think that it's really important to become more interdisciplinary within your university experience so that you are gaining experience of other people's professions, and like you can just learn more from each other, and because everything is so interdisciplinary once you get out into the world. So those are two models that I think could merge really well with VR.
Can I just quickly say something about the interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach? I fully agree. And actually, sort of related to what I said about the global mindset and international aspect of all this, I don't know, some of you probably may know that there is this whole initiative now going on by the European Commission about European universities. Hands up who has heard about European Universities Initiative. Not many people. Okay, anyway. So I'll tell you quickly, because Tampere University is also, as sort of a part of the alliances now, looking for a new kind of European university. There are actually, at the moment, there are 17 alliances across Europe trying to develop a new kind of European university. Nobody really knows what European university, sort of pan-European university means in the future, but we are now piloting and trying to figure out. And Tampere University is part of one of the alliances together with 11 other universities in Finland. And the whole idea of the university is actually about multidisciplinarity. So the whole university is built around sort of solving challenges, sort of really tough multidisciplinary challenges. And that's a little bit related to what I said about sort of co-creation, bringing people together and trying to understand each other's field and the problem and solve the problem together. So I fully agree, and we are also part of that kind of development at the moment. It's really, really interesting to see how it's going to work out at the European level together with 12 universities.
Okay, are there any more comments?
Questions? Comments, questions?
Either in English or in Finnish. Okay. Memma tells me to continue. I think we have time for small group discussions. So we thought that we could continue so that if you want to, we selected 3 themes. Eli me valittiin 3 teemaa, joista voi keskustella. And if you want to discuss something else, feel free. But if you want to discuss the future of skills and competencies, you can do it by that tree there. If you want to talk about digitalization and AI, artificial intelligence and so on, you can do it there. And at the sauna, there's the theme learning at work. So feel free to explore here and find people that you want to discuss the same themes. And we'll gather here in like 15 minutes for a closing together, and then you can continue. The space will be open.
No niin, terve. Kuuletko sä sillä, kun tämä halvaantunut, joka oli oikeapuoli halvaantunut se kaveri, niin sitä sparrattiin?
Voitaisiin siirtyä lopuksi tänne nuotion äärelle vielä vaihtamaan muutama sana niistä ajatuksista, mitä olette nyt vaihtaneet siellä pienemmissä ryhmissä. Ja jatketaan pienesti jutustelua yhdessä vielä tähän loppuun.
Yeah, please everyone come here around the bonfire and let's have a chat before we wrap this up for today. Feel free to have a sausage or some coffee, if you please. Oh, Pekka, you're always doing that. I told you to be careful. And she's going to fly. You'll see that she's going to fly. Oh.
Oh. Virtuaalitodellisuudessa voi tehdä kaikkea jännää, mitä oikeassa todellisuudessa ei. Tämä on hauska paikka.
Does anyone want to share what you discussed? Haluatteko jakaa, mistä keskustelitte? Ihan voi tulla tänne lähemmäksi jutella.
Tulkaa vaan kaikki tänne ihan nuotion äärelle ja jutellaan ihan
kuullaan paremmin.
Vapaamuotoisesti, niin ei tarvitse kenellekään antaa.
Ja Heli on tuossa vielä paikalla.
Megafonia ja Heliltä voi kysyä. Ja.
Kaikki meni hiljaisiksi tässä ryhmätilanteessa.
Kun on ihan varma, mitä kieltä puhuisi.
Kaikkea saa puhua.
Kaikkea saa puhua. Ruotsia.
Vaikka
sitäkin?
Ruotsia. Kyllä. Mikä mukavalta tuntuu.
Mikä onko se taas svenska här?
Joo.
On pas français peut-être, ça va?
No meillä oli äsken tuossa juttelin Chicagosta olevan naisen kanssa ja sitten se oli Ontarion Community Collegeissa opettavan tyypin kanssa, niin oli ihan mielenkiintoiset keskustelut siitä, että miten tekoälyä ja sitten miten digitalisaatiota heidän kanssaan tai he ovat yhdistäneet. Ja tämä Community Collegein kaveri opetti siis paramedics, eli siis ensihoitoa. Ja on sitä kautta lähtenyt sit miettimään, että miten sitä lisättyä todellisuutta voisi sinne tuoda. Ja sitten puhuttiin vähän kielten opiskelusta ja siitä, että tämmöinen tekoäly on aika hyvä kaveri siinä esimerkiksi Duolingon kanssa ja miten voidaan hyödyntää tätä VR myös kielten oppimisessa, koska just se Chicagosta oleva nainen, että jos täällä puhuttaisiin vain suomea, niin varmaan joutuisi itsekin opettelemaan sitä.
No on muuten sama, minkä näkee peleissä, miten paljon lapset joutuvat oppimaan vaikka englantia, kun ne pelaa kansainvälisissä tiimeissä.
Niin.
Niin onko tämä hämmentävää, että tämä on kaksikielinen vai olisiko tämä parempi, että tämä nyt olisi vaan niin kuin kerta kaikkiaan englanniksi?
I think both ways are.
Niin.
Both ways are okay.
Vähän sama kuin kansainvälisissä konferensseissa, kun suomalaiset on keskenään, ne alkaa puhua suomea kuitenkin, vaikka se olisikin kansainvälinen konferenssi. Tämähän simuloi todellisuutta siltä osin.
Yeah, for our English-speaking guests, we are discussing whether this works, this bilingual way, because when we are in a mixed group, we are all very quiet because people don't know in which language to start. And of course, for us Finns, it's easier. Sorry?
I was just pretending like, yeah, I understand. I had no idea what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
No clue.
So I would like to ask Heli, how did you feel to address people in virtual reality, have the speech?
I was actually just saying that it did not feel that much different from a normal sort of being on stage. Because of my work, I'm on stage quite a lot. So it was actually quite, I think, quite natural. We're talking about because you can move your head, you can move your hands, and others can see it. So this was the first time for me to present in virtual reality, but it was fun in a sense. It was not that different from just being sort of in real life.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it is, if you're far away and the audience is far away, it would be nice to have a big screen where we could video the speaker. So maybe that's something that we need to develop here.
And it's interesting how we keep a distance even here in our our virtual characters.
In our heads.
You don't go stand too close, it feels awkward.
We can close.
Yeah, but we can like merge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the next time we will meet here in EDUXR talks. Can you Memma and Ilona explain?
Yeah. Go ahead, Memma.
Eli 2 viikon päästä, siis me sovittiin, että me puhun vain suomea ja Ilona puhuu vain englantia, niin tämä menee hyvin. Eli 2 viikon päästä me saadaan vieraita tänne samalle Saran rannalle. Tulee Max Powell tuolta Microsoftilta, eli hän on education, nyt sanoin vahingossa englanninkielisen sanan, siis koulutus- ja oppimispuolen johtajana siellä, tai kouluttajana ja johtajana, oliko Pekka näin? Pekka tuntee hänet paremmin, ja hän tulee siis tänne puhumaan sosioemotionaalisesta oppimisesta. Ja
so
se on kello 7. 17:00 eli tuntia aiemmin kuin tämä tapahtuma.
Okay. So in 2 weeks we'll have another EDUXR talks with Max Pavel from Microsoft Education. Yeah, and he'll be talking about social emotional learning in education, and that will be at 5 Finnish time.
That's a great topic.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. So please join us and invite your friends also. We'll learn about it. But I think we should give applause to Heli from the
Kyllä.
emoji menu.
Yes, I need to.
Hyvä, Heli.
And maybe we can say bye to the. Are we still streaming? Yeah, we can say bye to the YouTube
Bye bye.
stream viewers.
Stream
Hello.
camera.
Moi moi.